higher-end cars don't even have yet. So let's drive the 2015 Audi A3 Sedan and check that tech. Boy, that engine is quick. This is a near bottom line car with near top of line technology. You know, the A4 grew up and out of its category. So they've replaced it with a sedan now that is definitely smaller, lighter, less expensive. Let's drive the 2015 Audi A3 Sedan in the 2.0T trim. Now, this A3 sedan is real new, especially to the U.S. market, although the A3 line's been around for quite a while. This is basically taking the place of the old A4, the original A4, which was about these same dimensions. This car is 175 inches long on a 103-inch wheelbase. The A4 has grown up quite a bit. It's 10 inches longer on a wheelbase that's 7 inches more, and that's to give that car more trunk and back seat room. This car remains a little snug in the back seat and the trunk, but tidier in the overall package. Now, the message on the A3 is small car with big car tech. Four things in particular sell you on that. You've got integrated 4G, you've got a full-on Audi MMI head unit with a pop-up screen and the newest controller here with a big touchpad. You've got optional Bang & Olufsen audio if you want to go really nuts. And you've got Audi Drive Select, which allows you to lay out this quattro drivetrain in a series of different personalities. The 4G is probably the biggest story in this car. This car has a built-in AT&T card. There's a SIM over there in the glove box, and that puts this car on the network by itself without tethering and better than that pokey 3G nonsense that a lot of other cars use. Now, here's where it gets interesting having all this 4G stuff is your online navigation and Audi Connect. Audi Connect's where you get to put all kinds of services, including your own custom news feeds you'd like, as well as the usual weather and fuel prices. These are of varying usefulness. Facebook and Twitter updates, of course, that can go back and forth via text to keep it safe. Flight information, parking information I find interesting. And of course, a 4G connection can finally power a credible Wi-Fi hotspot in the car. German car, no touch. Your control down here is a streamlined MMI controller interface. They've turned the top of the knob here into a larger finger trace writing space. Enter address. And of course, you've got generally very good voice command on this car with good prompts on screen. A couple of interesting features in how you find your destination. You can set I find interesting. And of course, a 4G connection can finally power a credible Wi-Fi hotspot in the car. German car, no touch. Your control down here is a streamlined MMI controller interface. They've turned the top of the knob here into a larger finger trace writing space. Enter address. And of course, you've got generally very good voice command on this car with good prompts on screen. A couple of interesting features in how you find your destination. You can send destinations online, obviously. You can search online through Google. That's not new, but again, works so much better with 4G. And here's an odd one. You can upload pictures that have GPS coordinates to your My Audi account. Those will get uploaded here, or you can bring them in on an SD card, and then you can navigate by looking at a thumbnail of photos. I'm not sure I'll ever need that, but it's cool. Now, you'll pay for this car's built-in 4G rather oddly after a 6-month free period. 5 gigabytes spread across 6 months is $100, or 30 gigabytes spread across 30 months is $500. The way they've structured it into 5 and 30-month buckets is very odd. Now, I'm not too concerned about hitting or exceeding those peaks and then getting billed above that unless you're doing a lot of Wi-Fi hotspot use. Nothing I'm seeing in here is going to be a bandwidth hog. As I mentioned, you get Bang & Olufsen audio, and the sources that it will bring you are pretty numerous as well. You've got a hard drive, which I'm dubious on, 2 SD card slots next to that SIM, CD slot is in there as well, and they don't use a lot of USB on these cars. They use these device pigtails in the console, which I feel is kind of old school, and then of course Bluetooth streaming is in there, and they do a pretty good job of bringing up meta tag information. And notice how they've also upped the processing so the vehicle works as quickly as the 4G connection coming in. And the last thing I mentioned is Audi Drive Select being a premium feature in a car like this, and that's where you've got these settings for the vehicle's behavior, deciding how you want the engine and transmission to ramp up, to accelerate, to make their shifts, as well as how tight you want the steering, or if you want it more leisurely. Now I want to show you the owner's manual, which you would think is this, and that is an owner's manual, but you can wing that because they've got a whole new thing going on. An augmented reality phone app that you can use to look around the car. It'll tell you what a button on the dash does. It'll tell you about a reading on a gauge and whether there's a problem. And then you go into the hood, it'll tell you where to perform simple maintenance. Really interesting. Now A3s all have pretty small motors. This is a 2-liter side saddle inline 4, and this is the big engine. The little one is a hamster. It's actually a 1.8. Both of them are turbocharged engines with direct injection. The numbers on this guy are 220 horsepower, 258 foot-pounds of torque. Turbos will do that for you. That gets out to all-wheel drive, 6-speed dual-clutch transmission only, so it's an automated manual. Interestingly, as I noticed the gear ranges, the top 3 are overdrive, so half that gearbox is overdrive. The overall package weighs a little over 3,300 pounds, yet gets up to 60 in a very respectable 5.8 seconds while delivering 2433 mpg. So this is a nice, powerful, lean little miser of a motor. I'll tell you, the first thing I noticed driving this little A3 was the transmission. It is perhaps the most refined DCT I've driven, so big thumbs up on the gearbox. And in front of that's a great engine. It's not a massively powerful car, but it's a really good breathing engine is my sense. It's just amazing that a 2-liter can do this for a car of, you know, pretty ordinary weight. I thought this car, for some reason, was going to have a little more of an aggressive suspension. It doesn't. At least in this trim, it is